Hello, I'm Chichi. Welcome to my podcast. This is Real Talk with Chichi, and this podcast is going to focus on issues around the public relations industry, whether it's public relation careers, social media, digital media, changing careers, life as an international student, job hunting in the PR industry. It's going to be amazing. You guys sit back and enjoy yourself. Nice to have you here. First and foremost, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be talking to you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Yeah. So our topic today is on the role of PR in crisis management in organizations. I know that public relations has had a great impact in crisis management in organizations.
Yeah.
So the first question I'm going to ask is, no one knows when crisis tends to strike in organizations. It is least expected. Most times we're just sitting in and boom, it hits you. How can you say organizations can best prepare for crisis when the worst happens? How can organizations prepare?
I think you're right in terms of people don't know they've got a crisis until it hits. I would say that sometimes you've got to have the crisis first before you realize you've got an issue that you need to resolve. There was a case some years ago of a cruise ship called the Costa Concordia that crashed into some rocks off the Italian Mediterranean coast.
Okay.
And a number of people died as a result of that. And it was only after the crisis when the company realized that their cruise ships on a 7-day cruise around the Mediterranean were not following the
maybe the standard operating procedure. Okay.
Exactly.
Wow.
And what was happening was that the captains, all men, were doing a bravado thing. So this captain of this particular ship, the Costa Concordia, who had a history, by the way, of accidents, wanted to show off to his girlfriend, who was on the bridge, how close he could get into shore.
Wow.
It was a bravado thing. And this is often what happens in crises, that you don't realize that you've got a problem until you hit that problem. Look at the chart. Look at the Confederation of British Industry, the most
the CBI
business federation in the United Kingdom, representing all the good and the great in this country.
Yes.
Huge corporations. Why was it that no one knew that they had or had really that they had a problem? They had a problem with sexuality. They had a problem in behavior of principally men towards women, employees.
Yeah.
Why was that ignored, repeatedly ignored? And why did it take for a woman to bring a sexual harassment case against the organization before they woke up? And now they've got tens of organizations leaving them, and the whole organization is, there are even people saying, is it going to survive? Does it need to be a completely new organization with new governance? So it's often a question of governance.
Yeah. Now that you brought that up, thank you, Robert. Now that you brought that up, so I read up on that story, and it really got me worried. I mean, it was not just about the suspending the head of the organization. It's gone to the point where even stakeholders, investors are pulling out and saying, we don't want to be associated with this company. We don't want to be associated with this organization that is so plagued with sexual issues. How do you think that organizations like this who hit a crisis without knowing can, how do you think they can best position to come out of it? Secondly,
Well,
that's a two question.
I think
Secondly, sorry, Robert, do you see the CBI coming out of this?
yeah, I do. I do. I think I do. But I think it's all. This is all a question of trust. You know, when it takes a long time to build up trust, but it can go in a click of a second, can't it?
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
And it's like a pack of dominoes. You know, once one thing falls over, the whole thing starts collapsing.
Yeah, that's
I think you have to be very frank, very honest. You have to admit mistakes. You have to show compassion.
Yeah.
And you have to put your hands up and say, we've got it wrong.
So you admit to the problem.
You have to admit the problem. And this is very, very difficult for very senior executives, particularly chief executives and chairmen of companies. Chairpersons, because they're not used to admitting mistakes.
Yes.
I mean, look at your profession. How many lawyers would admit they've made a mistake in a court case?
Not many.
Not many. No, it's not in the DNA.
Yeah.
And this is, I think that's the first thing you've got to do.
Yes.
I think you need to show concern for what's happened.
Yeah.
You've got to have a clarity of communications around it. You've got to be able to control the situation and demonstrate you've got confidence in being able to manage the incident and competence in resolving it. Now, I think the CBI have gone through to the first three. Well, the first two.
Yes. Yes.
Have they got control of the situation? Well, that we have to see.
Not yet. Not yet. Not yet.
Well, there are some good signs insofar as they've appointed a new chief executive who's a woman.
Yes, yes.
And I think that's a major plus point.
That's a smart move. That was a smart move.
Well, a smart move. And we will see whether she is able to take control of the situation. And she needs to have the resources to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And that we see confidence that they can manage that situation and they have the competence in resolving it. So I think they can get through it. And yes, some people using a shipping terminology of jump ship. I think that's regrettable. I think they should, you know, if I was one of those corporations, I'd say, look, this is not great at all.
Yes.
And we need to resolve it. But we will give you some resources to help resolve it in terms of people and time.
That's good. That's good. Thank you, Richard.
Rather than just bailing out. It's too easy just to say, oh well, we're the best thing we can do. We don't want to be involved with this toxic culture. We'll just cancel it. I mean, that's too easy to do.
I agree. I agree. Thank you, Richard. I think you've mentioned something I wanted to ask you before. I like the way you infuse the 5 C's of a crisis response plan: concern, commitment, competency, clarity, confidence. And you said something, control. I like that. I want to ask you just the last question because, I mean, we're running out of time. I really like to talk to you more. Well, okay. So the last question will be, what would be your advice for younger people in this day and age who are looking into crisis communications management? What would you have to speak to a 22-year-old who is coming into the industry? What would be your advice, Richard, to him?
Robert.
Robert, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, pick a good crisis communications textbook, and there are a few that are not being written by academics, but people who have actually been through a crisis, lived through a crisis, and learned from a crisis. I have to say that, I mean, a number of students say it's very exciting being in crisis communications because it's fast moving and it's exciting. I have to say that I dread every crisis that I've come across. It is exhausting, it is demoralizing, it is just whether you come out and if you come out the other side still intact. That's a plus point, but there's no guarantee that will ever happen, And we have seen companies just fail and collapse, and organizations who haven't been able to get through that crisis. I think you have to make your own judgments. So I think, showing care, sympathy, concern, understanding, maybe regret, and being able to say sorry are major plus points. Being able to be honest with yourself and with others around you is a major plus point. And asking the question, as public relations people, we're supposed to be
So my guest today is Aziz Kehinde. Kehinde is a graduate of mass communication. Currently, he's on an European Union scholarship for his master's degree in international corporate communication and media management. In partial fulfillment of his master's degree program, he did an exchange semester during summer in Graz, Austria, where he studied content strategy. Okay, so let's cut straight to the chase. So, Kehinde, you have had experience with an organization in Nigeria before you proceeded for your postgraduate studies. How well, in your own opinion, will you say Nigerian companies are prepared for crisis and emergency?
This is this is a very straightforward question, but I'll try to be brief as much as possible. From my experience thus far, I really don't think most Nigerian companies, I really don't think they are prepared for crisis or emergency, because their idea of crisis management is totally different from what is widely acceptable.
Okay.
And basically, I would not blame those companies. The fault basically lies with the government, because when conglomerates come into your country to come and do business,
yes,
the laws, the rules and regulations that you have readily available that they work with. So if they see that there are lapses in the rules and regulations that guide the conduct of establishments in your country, definitely, they would not want to waste a lot of money in engaging in, things that would not, yield return for the company, most especially when the rules and regulations that govern the conduct of companies in such country is nothing to write home about. So
what you're trying to say is that there's no standard procedure like SOP. There are no regulatory bodies that check.
At all. Even if they are, there's a lot of slack.
Okay.
But there's a lot of slack. You've had Nigerians working with Indian firms, Chinese firms. There have been a lot of complaint with respect to labor, and the government is doing nothing up until now. So imagine that there tends to be a crisis. How do you think such complaints would handle it? They would just handle it with levity, knowing fully well that there's nothing that would happen. And even if anything is going to happen, they can easily bribe their way through. So currently our crisis, management scheme is really nothing, we've not really done much with that regards. It was only during Easter I actually saw a curative PR, but again, curative PR is in stages. They did an advert in commemorating with the Christians in Nigeria for the Easter celebration.
And yes, I saw that. That. There was an apology and a withdrawal of that.
Exactly. So what they just did was to withdraw. They withdraw the ad.
In all, I would say that looks like success to me, because that is not the normal, that's not the average Nigerian story we hear.
Yeah,
Anything literally go before in Nigeria. But when I saw that, while reading this weeks ago, I stumbled on that and I was like, this is good news. If we can do this, because this is practically what happens in the West. So if Nigerian PR companies are beginning to be aware that their messages and PR messages that could be offensive. I hope that you've learned something today. I hope that you enjoyed the topic that we had today. Leave your comments below. Please like, subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts were and what we said. I hope you had an amazing time. Till next time on the podcast, it's bye for now.